Keep it high, keep it tight. I'm Jay Morris, Review Guy, back to bring you another 5-minute review. In this one, we are going to be reviewing the album Graveyard Shift by Motionless and White. So if you are unfamiliar with this name, this band, they are a metalcore band that leans more towards the gothic type of just feel overall, the kind of dark rock, dark metal, and they lean a lot more towards that industrial side, especially on this album. So, you know what I always say on this channel if you've followed me for a while. I like to review polarizing albums. And this album was definitely a dividing line for a lot of fans because the album Reincarnate was a massive success. The lead single, or I should say the title track, Reincarnate, it really, if you want to listen to that, it sums up that whole album as a whole, and it really brought in a lot of new fans. And the older fans that had maybe followed the band before, a lot of people gave them a chance, were like, we told you so, this is a really good band. And people were curious to see the follow-up. The band had a lot of pressure on them. It was like, how are they going to follow it up, and can they? And I don't know if it's the same. When you have an album that is extremely well made, it's definitely difficult to get it better. Cattle Decapitation did it from Monolith of Inhumanity to the Anthropocene Extinction. Born of Osiris could not do it with the Discovery to Tomorrow We Die Alive, and a lot of bands are unable to really get that same feel that previous albums gotten. Breaking Benjamin's Ember didn't do what Dark Before Dawn could do for a lot of people. And it's that dividing line that a lot of bands kind of fall under with albums when they have a really critically acclaimed success from music critics as well as casual listeners alike. And this was a band that had a huge burden on their back of making another great album. And this album has gotten a lot of hate from people on the internet. And I'm just going to come right out and say that I'm not going to be on that bandwagon of hate. This was released on Roadrunner Records last year, and I forget the exact month, but it released last year, and it was released on Roadrunner Records, which was the band's kind of big label debut, and it was very big for the band. And I remember I got this album within the first week of release. I was very excited to see what the band could do, hear what the band could do. And I really feel like this band does something that a lot of bands can't do, and it's something that people aren't really appreciating the music for, and that is the fact that I feel like this album, it really feels like they're doing something unique. This band has a very kind of dead type of like atmosphere and a lot of lyricism. It's very gothic, and when on this album in particular, and to a lesser degree on earlier albums, sometimes on Reincarnate, the lead vocals, when they go down, he has three types of kind of singing. He has the really heavy metal type of growls and screams. He has the singing, where he does on tracks such as Reincarnate from Reincarnate and Eternally Yours from Graveyard Shift. And number 3, and this is the big one to kind of capture that gothic feel, is he has this almost Marilyn Manson type of, this type of here, right here, he sings like this. If any of you have heard Marilyn Manson, you'll know what I'm doing. That kind of very low, gravelly type of sound. And he does that a lot on this album. And this album has a lot more singing than some previous ones, but it still has that grit to it, that natural grit, and I definitely think that it is good. Now, the lyricism is where a lot of people think the album falls flat, and I can agree that some of the lyricism is questionable. It's kind of maybe a little bit too over the top, a little bit too edgy, but at the same time, I think that it still comes through. I think that it still is a good album. And when I first heard Eternally Yours, which was one of the singles released, I just fell in love with this album before I even heard any of the other singles, any of the other songs that weren't released. And when I first listened to the album, I can't say I was really disappointed. Right after I listened to it again, and I listened to it a lot that week, and I still listen to it a year a year and a half later, and I really, really enjoyed this album. And I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10 because there are things that could be improved. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to say that this is a perfect album. I'm not going to say it stands up fully to Reincarnate. But for me, I don't think this is an album that should be considered a dud. A lot of people do, and that's taste, that's opinion. So be it, more power to you. But I very much think that this is a good album. My name is GMgaming Review Guy. I'll talk to you guys next time. But until then, I'm saying farewell. Peace out.
Oh no, what your mama gonna say when I tell her that I broke no heart? It's just things not the way that they used to be. Oh no, now you crying on the bathroom floor and I guess it's the end. Well, I lost my mind and I lost my